Hi everybody, we are on chapter 5 of the Bryk book now. We're going to be talking about a theory that appeals to a lot of you, and I think it's going to be interesting to look at it, and it's this concept of relational trust. This is one of the big ideas that's in the book, and I think there's going to be some good things that come of this lecture that might be able to help you in your future research. When we talk about Bryk and sort of the work in this book, and one of the main ideas that came out, something that we keep coming back to was this concept of relational trust in organizations. Basically, there's a positive relationship between the amount of trust that people in the organization had and the success of the school. If the teachers and the staff did not trust each other and they didn't trust the administration, then that had an issue as well. So we're going to look at some of the theory behind relational trust and how it can be used to support and influence school improvement. So there are multiple roles when you talk about trust that you have to look at. Most people in school communities have different established forms of power. Teachers have power, parents have power, school board members have power. Superintendents have power, principals have power, but with that power comes in the ability for each stakeholder to trust the actions and the decisions that the others are making. So when we're talking about these trust dynamics, we're going to be talking about the relationship the school principal has with teachers, teachers with one another, school professionals with parents, and if these relationships are good and there's a mutual form of respect that exists, people feel as though their opinions have at least been recognized, and they're more likely to be successful within the organization. So once again, remember to think about schools differently than you would any other professional organization. Schools have more intimate relationships between the stakeholders because the students are relating to their teachers, the teachers are relating to the principals, parents are involved. Other organizations don't have these intimate connections that schools do. So try to realize that most of the time, if people have satisfaction, they're going to basically have satisfaction with who they know and how they get along with each other more so than what their job description actually says. So when principals take interest in their teaching staff and the teachers feel like the principals care about them, they're more likely to have a positive relationship. Trust improves over time as these exchanges grow and through the expectations held for others. So one of the things that you have to understand is if trust exists within an organization, you're going to have much more teacher buy-in and parent buy-in. People are going to be more likely to engage in school reform if they feel as though that the organization is a trusting organization to begin with. If you don't trust that the work that the principal is doing, you are less likely to go along with the reform efforts that they have. So if the teachers trust the principal, they're going to work together and they're going to be able to collaborate. It doesn't directly affect student learning, but it does. Because it allows for buy-in and it gives you the opportunity to actually have the school and family partnerships that will improve schools. So I feel as though this is important that you note because this study was the first to attempt to measure relational trust. Why that matters is the fact that the survey changed and the indicators changed because it started in '91 and then it improved to 27 items in 1997. So it took 6 full years for this entire system to be established. If you're interested in trust, I strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to look at Appendix C of the text because this will give you a good idea of what this indicator looks like and how you can frame it organizationally. So anytime that there is a small win at the building level, then more changes can occur in the future. So if people are acting positively and have positive relationships with each other, this is great and this will improve the essential supports over time. Between 91 and 94, 3 different indicators were improved, and then between 94 and 97, 4 different indicators improved. So longitudinally, if of these 27 factors, 7 of them improve, then in theory, the organization should improve and it should have more sustainable gains because people can be involved, committed to the organization, and that'll help improve change. So most importantly, and if you can find a way to improve this in your district as a superintendent or in your building as a principal, you have won half of the battle in education. If work orientation improves, everybody wins. This was done between 91 and 94, and then there was even more improvement with work orientation between 94 and 97. There were 3 different surveys for trust at the time, but if we're showing that there's improvement for work orientation, that is definitely a positive and a good thing. So if schools had deteriorating trust, one of the things that can possibly come of that, it can decrease the work orientation or the parent involvement. What we've talked about already with the Chicago school study was the fact that there was safety and order that was also addressed as well. That's something that in some of our buildings all of us take for granted. Well, of course our school is safe. Of course our teachers are working, but in a large urban district, safety and order, if you don't have trust, that's one of the first things that tends to go anyway. Curriculum alignment, there was no effect. If trust wasn't there, the curriculum was still aligned appropriately, but the work orientation and the parent involvement, I would argue, all tie directly into curriculum alignment as well. So one of the things to improve academic productivity is to strengthen the core. If you can strengthen the organizational subsystems, you will improve academic productivity, and that'll improve the functioning of the school as well. So we talked in chapter 2 kind of this notion, of school size and stability of student-parent group. You have to recognize school size when you're talking about trust as well, because in a smaller school, everybody's going to get to know each other better. The teachers are going to get to know the parents better, the teachers are going to get to know the students better, the principals are going to get to know the teachers better in smaller schools. Research shows that smaller schools work, but the problem is, can we afford to pay for smaller schools? This has a positive, small school size does have a positive impact on teachers being satisfied in their job. If they know that they're only going to be working or answering to 10 or 15 different people, this can help with school change efforts as well. When those schools expand, different social networks arise, meaning that age, gender, race, former assignments do influence who you talk with and who you interact with each other in the organization. Larger schools, it's difficult to change that dynamic, but you have a better chance of improving a smaller school, and then if that smaller school grows, the improvement will continue as well. So the other issue that we have, and this is a problem of urban schools, that I can't change, you can't change, none of us are ever going to be able to change. When there's denser social interactions, one of the reasons is probably because parents and students are moving constantly. So that can create problems as well. When somebody gets a better opportunity, they leave. And then what happens then is the people that get the better opportunities, because the parents are advancing themselves educationally and academically, those are the students that are going to be, that's going to be the students that are going to be leaving the district. So that can ruin the relationships and ruin the trust as well. Teacher and principal instability removes levels of trust and stability within the organization as well. So, one of the other things that you have to note is the fact that a lot of this was guess-oriented more than anything else, because this was a new indicator. So this has changed. We look at kind of the fact that organizational size and turnover directly correlated with trust. Well, in order for you to make a judgment on that, a hypothesis has to be made in the first place. In this, the hypothesis was made that that would have an effect on trust. So it did link size and stability, but you have to remember this was one of the first studies to actually do that. So what is the magic number? I think and this is big, this is, if I would say, a big idea, schools that had student enrollment of 350 students or less had more parent involvement, better work orientation, better safety and order. This is important if you're trying to reform schools, because if you can have one of these smaller schools, initially this is going to improve, but then eventually the community would already stabilize under the reform efforts. So once you do the improvements, you're going to see only small gains shortly after that. You keep in mind that everything is going to, show you that relational trust is going to form in small schools because there's going to be better relationships, and it's more of a resource for attacking any issues and any problems and any challenges that exist in the school. So the last two slides really, how do you relate this to practice? It's difficult to improve disadvantaged urban schools because we're constantly in an era now of consolidation of them. Because of that, you can't say, if you're consolidating schools and merging them into comprehensive schools, you can't say, well, we need smaller community schools because those cost money. This takes time in organizations because there are different levels. If you can try to have a stable enrollment, that can help. Trust is a good thing, but longitudinally this has to happen. So the last chapter that we're going to look at really talks more about this notion of what other community contexts can be used for organizational improvement. If you take anything away from this lecture, chapter 5 really looked at why we should have community schools and how trust links to the whole community school concept. And this should help you use this for your dissertations and your case studies. And if I can do anything else to help, let me know. But I really want you to think of this chapter as one that looked at relational trust and community schools. Thank you.